Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Jai Hind. A small introduction to start with. I believe that irrespective of how ordinary life one leads, there are moments in everyone's life which are beyond ordinary. And life is nothing at the end of it. When you look back at your life, you don't remember days, you don't remember months, you don't remember years. You remember these moments in life where you behaved or you saw something beyond ordinary. And life is nothing but these moments strung on a timeline. The closer these moments are, more enriched or better life you have lived. Life in armed forces, where some people go out there, risk their lives, day in, day out, as routine, gives you a lot of such opportune moments. Few of us who started flying together, I do not know the reason why they are not there with me today. They left somewhere in between. Some of us are alive today, some of us are not. Similarly, some of them started flying after me. They are not there today. I have no reason, no explanation. You call it destiny, karma, fate, whatever you call it. I have no explanation, but I do know that all of them, each one of them, irrespective of the color of uniform or the kind of job he was doing, he had the same attitude, same inspiration, same motivation, and the same propulsion to do the task at hand with as best to his capability as possible, without total disregard to the personal danger he experiences for his life. Let me take you 32 years back. When I was a flight cadet, 20 years old, very happy to clear my solo, strapping up on a Korean aircraft or Air Force Academy on a tarmac. I saw an aircraft 300-400 feet above me and descending. I thought it's slightly low for an aircraft to come there. It'll pull up. That aircraft didn't. That aircraft continued, went, scraped the hangars, and just banged on the ground. There was a huge mushroom of smoke and dust and fire. Search and rescue parties, firefighters turned towards that. Meanwhile, one instructor came, sat with me in the aircraft that day, and we went for flying, with the aircraft being crashed there. That evening, when I came back, I write certain things in my diary, when important things happen. I like to share it because I'm no longer doing it. I can share it with you. Today, I saw the death so closely that I felt a chill in spine. I was one of the few who saw that aircraft banging into the ground. We are all in the game, and it's the part of the game. Today, we lost our first course mate, and the scene is there in my mind like a video film. I was due for a solo. I wanted to go, but CFI, that's Chief Flying Instructor, decided against it. Today, officers and Colonel Khalsa came to our mess just to make us feel that you boys better make it a habit if you want to become a pilot. The biggest thing which I learned from it is that any day, any time, it can happen to anybody. And sooner I make adjustment, the better. Also, the work should go on. Flying didn't stop, and that's the best part of it. No doubt, the impact of this incident is going to remain for some time. But I should not feel any sort of fear, as it is not the number of days which are important. As it is not the number of days which are important. This 5th February, when I was watching the news channel, a young captain, age of 22, Captain Kapil Kundu, his one of the recent Facebook posts said, life should be big, not long, not the number of days. Same sentiment echoed 32 years later by a 22-year-old captain, as I had as a 20-year-old 32 years back. Nothing has changed, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing has changed. This youth, combined with raw idealism, is the potent force that propels these youngsters to do that. And that's the first reason. Later, I got commissioned, luckily, fortunate to be selected for fighters. Then I went there to become instructor in the same place. And then I volunteered for test pilot course fortunate to be selected for test pilot course. In 1998, I finished my test pilot course, and due to some reason, I couldn't take any leave, and at the end of it, I took some leave. We had an aircraft. If you look at this aircraft, we used to call it Idli Abro. You see that Idli on top of it, right? So this aircraft, I had flown some few sorties in this aircraft, and we used to go to Arkonam for sea-level trials, performance trial, but I was away for some reason. 2 other pilots went for this, 2 flight test engineers, some DRDO scientists. On 11th of January, 1999, while coming back from the last flight of those trials, this aircraft crashed short of Naval Arkonam base, killing all 8 on board. 2 test pilots, my course mates, 2 flight test engineers, 4 DRDO scientists. 11th of Jan, 1999. 12th of Jan, we had the funeral at Bangalore. And 12th of Jan, when I came back, once again, I'll share my thoughts with you. It's been 13 years since I lost my first course mate. Today, the tally is 6. Venki and Sheshu, these are 2 pilots. Called it today on 11 Jan 1999. I'm smoking the butt of a cigarette left by Sheshu in the ashtray on 29 December 98. By the way, that was his birthday. Sometimes it pays to be untidy. I was a mild smoker that time. 13 years back, at the young age of 20 years, I told myself not to be scared of flying after having seen the aircraft going in the ground. That time, my logic was, it's not the number of days, but how you live that matters. Now today, I'm scared. I can never forget the sight of Anish, that's Sheshu's son, walking across the coffins on the AST tarmac. AST is Aircraft System and Testing Establishment, where as a test pilot I was posted that time. On the tarmac with flower in his hands. The 6-year-old kid looked dazed, confused, insecure, and troubled. He looked so much like Gungun, that's my son. Life is unfair and God is non-existent. How can you possibly justify the death of 8 people who, by any standards, were contributing more than 99% of the people for the country and society? I am shocked and shaken. Neither this country nor this Air Force is worth taking your life. It hurts to things like this, but it's a fact. I cannot reconcile to it. It's simply too much. I'm seriously thinking about destiny. Maybe it's true that it's all written well before, and we are just puppets on the stage. It could have been me. And just to think of Seema, Gungun, and Saloni without my being there is enough to chill my spine. Death, they say, is the ultimate truth. And we are so happy to close our eyes to it by thinking, thank God, it's not me. Any guess, 14 to 15 hours later, on 13th of Jan, early afternoon, what I was doing? Absolutely. I was starting up a Jaguar for a flight test sortie along with another test pilot who was starting a Mirage 2000. We were the first to get airborne after that incident. That's the second reason why we do it. That those who went didn't go for nothing, right? You have to express your solidarity with them. And if you need to tell people that, listen, those guys, they left something undone. You got to do it. There's no way that you can shy away from that. That's the second reason why I do it. And this is peacetime. Whatever happens in wartime, because of flying, being a machine failure in the air, you will lose as many lives in the wartime as you will in the peacetime. That's just because you defy gravity and get airborne. Thankfully, that for 24 years I served in Air Force, there never was a war. But closest we came to war was when they attacked our parliament in December 2001. And all 3 armed forces were activated to the full scale. That was the largest activation since 1971. And I was deployed as a flight commander. On a fighter squadron, flight commander is the number 2 in the squadron he is in charge of all the operations of the squadron. Operationally, he is responsible for the fighter operations of the squadron. And at that time, it looked, sometimes we had loaded aircraft, weapons all charged up, that next day is going to the war. Third reason, how much you love yourself, how much you love your wife and kids. What if you die? Am I scared? Yes. But this time, I'm scared of dying and not reluctant to die. Only if I can ensure the victory for my country and lives of my squadron pilots by laying down my life, I'll be happy to accept the bargain. I'm not sure how long this activation is going to last or when will the war start. If there is war, I promise, I'll never be found wanting as a flight commander and as a pilot. Long back, I wrote in this diary, that the only 2 things I want out of the next war are victory for my country, myself alive, as I am training for it. The first goal remains as it is, but the second goal is I want each and every pilot of my squadron alive, and let me be the last in the list. This is the third sentiment which makes you go through, because you feel responsible for the youngsters who are there, and you feel that you can protect them. That's the third reason. All this wandering in wilderness was trying to find out the reason when I was told to give this talk. I said, let me share what my thoughts are about. It took me another 10 years to come to the conclusion how all these things, I have summed up, and this is not my thoughts. These are thoughts I told you before also. All those who have been there, who are there, and who are going to be there. It doesn't change, because that's something which is from time immemorial. The will to fight and for the righters is right is time immemorial, because you feel you're on the right side. 2010, I applied for premature release from the Air Force, and for the personal reasons, and Air Force fortunately agreed to relieve me. And I was looking ahead for a career in civil airline, flying civil airline at the age of 45. And my wife was a little bit relieved that, yes, for the next 20 years, he got a set time to go. Aeronautical Development Agency, at that time, when I retired, I was chief test pilot for the light combat aircraft, the indigenous aircraft, which is our own home-built fighter aircraft. Aeronautical Development Agency offered me a contract to continue flying as a civilian, the fighter aircraft. And like Godfather, he says this was an offer I couldn't refuse, although my wife was not very happy about it. At that age, I was young enough to know that I can do it. I was old enough to know that I shouldn't be doing it. But as you must have guessed, that I was stupid enough to continue doing it. 3 years later, we were to do a test of a single-engine aircraft. The fly-by-wire adds a few more complications to it. To switch off the single engine in the air, light it once again, and then come back. That time, it looked a very, very huge, high-risk exercise. And risk was right, not only personal risk of the aircraft and the pilot, but also for the whole program. If that test is unsuccessful, the costliest research and development program which the government of India has undertaken in last 50 years or since independence may have very, very serious drawbacks. As you can see, I'm standing on my legs with all my limbs, so test was successful. But that time, it looked as if we are jumping in fire. My sister, who lives in UK, came to know about it about 15 days later. She wrote a mail to me after coming to know about it. Neetu, that's my nickname. We were on the M1 on our way to London, wrestling with Friday evening traffic on 25th November. Ranjit, that's my brother-in-law, enthused voice tells me a story he heard from our mom the day before. My body freezed, eyes welled up, and my face lit up with pride. I turned my face away from the windscreen and closed my eyes to count my blessings. The rows of cars, slow-moving traffic, the road signs, the trees, the landscape, the rotating turbine, the clouds. Everything becomes invisible. Felt an unbearable ache in my heart, an earnest longing to hug you, to touch you, to feel you in real and assure you. These life-threatening adventures may be a normal working day for you, but as these are sermons from the godless earth, the prayers of wife, mother, sister, and others are being heard. May God bless you with long and healthy life. Happy Bhai Dooj. Love you, Didi. Dear Didi, I do not think prayers work, as I have seen so many people suffering even after so much of genuine prayers. But in my case, prayers of my loved ones seems to be working for me, and despite my serious doubt about his existence, God, if he exists, has been on my side. Someone said that this kind of flying is not for the boys who want to be men, but for the men who want to be boys. I always feel like a teenager trapped in an older body. Bhishma said to Yudhishthir, while lying on his deathbed at Kurukshetra, that the only duty or mission of a man on this earth is to follow his dharma, and wisdom is the greatest obstacle in doing that. It was wisdom which overpowered his valor on that day when he did not stop Duryodhana from insulting Draupadi. The rest, as they say, is a history. I have seldom been wise in making important decisions of my life. This time, though, I debated and pondered that am I not being unfair to my family by taking such a risk? I could not find the correct answer to it. But I knew if I do not undertake this task, I will live the rest of my life with a regret. Wisdom would have advised me to live a life of regret and choose certainty of being alive in one piece for my family. My inner voice said, if not me, then who else? I refused to listen to my wise self and took refuge in following my dharma by listening to my inner calling. Thank you, Didi, for such a wonderful mail on Bhai Dooj. You are right. It is the result of prayers of mother, sister, wife, and daughter is catching up fast. I just hope I never push God to support me beyond the limits of their prayers. This is the essence of it, right? This is the essence, that follow your inner voice, dharma. All the three reasons which I listed, and maybe people who have been there can list them in better ways than what I have done. They can describe it. This is the final it comes down to, that irrespective, it's not about risking your life. It's about any situation in life. What does your inner voice say, and do you follow it? First response of your inner voice normally will be the correct one or the right one, right? But thereafter, wisdom overtakes you. The pros and cons overtakes you. And then you become weak. You give in to the way. Right? So this is the essence which I have found, that any situation, following your inner dharma, inner calling, the more you listen to it, right, better it becomes. When it says yes, if you go ahead and do it, right, you will praise yourself. When it says no, stop, don't do it, the more you listen to it, better it becomes. It should become your best friend and your worst critic. That's the way your inner voice should become. And that's dharma. It's not religion. It's not sect. It's not following someone. It's following your inner calling. You got to hone it day by day. More you listen to it, better it becomes. That is all I had to share, ladies and gentlemen, with you, that in this life, this is the essence of my learning, and this is the precipitation of what I have seen in last 32 years about the people who risk their life as a routine. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Jai Hind.